throw. Got time over the middle. Camarillo's got it. 40.
He might
30.
score.
He may go the distance.
He's going in.
The Miami Dolphins have
like no one's ever seen. We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl, 'cause we're the
Hey Dolphins, welcome back to another edition of Miami Dolphins FinCast. As always, I am here with the lovely and talented Maya Angel.
Hi, guys.
And we're here with a special edition because we're wrapping up the preseason and we're going to be looking forward to our first regular season game versus the Seattle Seahawks. So with all of that to cover, let's get right into it with our week in review.
The week in review. Dolphins played their first ever game at home at their new Hard Rock Stadium against the Tennessee Titans. It wasn't much of an eventful game, but we did get to figure out a lot of battles between players to figure out who was going to earn the position that they needed, specifically with quarterbacks. So it was between Brandon Doughty and Zach Dysert to see who would be the third string quarterback. Brandon Doughty outplayed Dysert. He played in the second half because both quarterbacks were given equal opportunity to play. So Zach Dysert played in the first half and Brandon Doughty played the rest of the second. So Brandon Doughty was 8 for 12 attempts for 98 yards and he had a 91.7 passer rating. Zach Dysert was 10 for 16 attempts for 85 yards. He also had one interception and a 50.3 passer rating. This led him to get cut, and I think that the interception was a big deal on why Brandon Doughty seemed to outplay him.
It really just comes down to how do they look in the pocket? How are they commanding the offense? And Dysert did not look comfortable in the backfield. He didn't look comfortable passing the ball. He missed a few open targets. And when Doughty came in, he looked extremely comfortable. He commanded the offense. He moved him down the field, and he made some really nice throws. And I think that's really what it comes down to is just who has the command of the offense.
And another thing to note, I think, for me that I've thought about is that third-string quarterbacks, it's not something that you ever want to hear that they're starting, but it is a good thing to have to lock in because, you know, situations happen where your first-string quarterback goes down and you need to depend on your backups in your third string. And then it will see, like, if that were to ever happen in a hypothetical situation with Tannehill, who do you think would play? Do you think they would put Matt Moore in first before they would put in Doughty?
Most likely. Matt Moore has the experience. He's been in game time situation before. So, I would think, I think Matt Moore would go in. Typically what happens, though, is you have your starting quarterback and then your backup is a backup quarterback. I mean, usually in the league, they're not starting for a reason. So they're a backup quarterback in case of an emergency. Your third stringer most of the time is someone that's younger that you're looking to groom for the future. So I would think they're looking at Brandon Doughty to possibly be the backup to Tannehill next year and maybe even to be the successor of Tannehill or, in case of emergency, break glass of Tannehill.
I think that'd be a good idea. I think Brandon Doughty is someone that we can put stock into and mold him to become the quarterback that we would need.
But you can tell. I mean, he's a rookie. He's not ready. He's not playing at that NFL caliber yet. But we saw some really good things out of him this week, and it was enough for the Dolphins to keep him on the team. And whatever they're seeing out of him in camp as well earned him a roster spot.
So now talking about rushing, Dolphins only had 53 yards, which is pretty terrible.
That's pretty bad.
If to put it lightly. Daniel Thomas he actually had a pretty solid game if you think about it. He was 10 for 31 yards and he had one touchdown. He played with strength and determination, but out of the 6 running backs that they had, he didn't make the cut. They kept Jay Ajayi, Arian Foster, Damian Williams, Kenyon Drake, and Isaiah Peed.
Yeah, and I'm surprised they actually kept 5 running backs. I thought they were only going to keep 4 on the team. And I thought they were going to have to make a decision between Williams and Peed, and they decided to keep all 5. So it might be because of the uncertainty of the health of Arian Foster, and can Arian Foster go the long haul? It may be the uncertainty of Jay Ajayi, and is he somebody that can really step up and go to the next level? I know this camp, they saw a lot of good things out of Damian Williams. He's looking really strong. And Isaiah Pete had some flashes as a young player as well. So, Adam Gase loves using the running back. He loves using the running back out of the backfield, to catch the ball, as well as lean hard on the running game. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. But they kept 5 running backs.
Yeah, and so the Dolphins released their depth chart earlier this week for the regular season, not for the opening game. So in the regular season depth chart, they put Arian Foster as starter and Jay Ajayi as second. Now, this decision was very obvious to me watching the game against the Tennessee Titans because Jay Ajayi, there was something off about him during that game. And it's not very comforting to see him fumble the ball on the first play and have the Tennessee Titans recover it. That's not a comforting thought to play from your running back, especially someone that we thought was going to be your starter.
Yeah, and Gase said that fumble was a big deal. He said we just can't have our running backs, fumbling the ball, and so I think that was a big factor in where Jay Ajayi is in the depth chart. I mean, now he's still number 2 behind Arian Foster, but I would think we're going to see all of the running backs at within the first few games. I would think that Gase is going to try to put all of them in there, at least for a few carries, just to see who's who.
Right, he would try to experiment, basically.
Yeah, I think he wants to see who's ready to step up. I don't know if he's going to carry 5 running backs for the entire season. I don't know if that makes sense. And at some point in this, in the season, usually within the first couple weeks of the season, you kind of settle in, you figure out who are your real contributors, and then you make some more roster moves after that.
Now talking about defense, Xavier Howard, our cornerback that we picked up in the draft, had his debut game against the Titans. And I'm guessing the Dolphins really liked what they saw because they named him starter besides Byron Maxwell. He didn't look like his injury was hurting him. In fact, he looked injury-free. He ran his routes perfectly, and he broke up a lot of passes that could have had a lot of potential yardage. So I liked what I saw from Xavier Howard.
Yeah, he looked pretty strong. He's the best of what we have right now. I thought he looked stronger than Tony Lippett. Who really that's who they were looking at between the two of them to start. It's going to be interesting. It's we're going up against Seattle, and it's going to be a big test. It's a much different test than a preseason game against the Titans. But he looks comfortable. And that's a good thing that you want from a cornerback, is you want them to look comfortable. You don't want them out there looking fidgety or looking scared. So I'm actually excited to continue to watch Xavier Howard and see what he can do.
Right, and talking about Tony Lippett, he had that impressive interception, but he continues to get beat out by the wide receivers during games. He struggles to break up passes and apply pressure in coverage.
Yeah, I mean, having one good play is great, but if you're consistently getting beat, that's not helping the cause. And so, we need a tighter coverage over there. And I'm hoping Byron Maxwell is everything that that the Dolphins are thinking he is on one side, and then really we'll see if their draft prowess is working this year with Xavier Howard. So we need something because we are not deep on cornerback. So we need our starters to play really well.
Now talking about depth, we have a lot of depth in our defensive end position. We have Wake on one side, Williams on the other, Mario Williams on the other side, and then we have Branch, Fade, and Jones as backups. So, but that's very comforting to see, especially with someone like Wake, who in the past goes down with injury. And also on the other side, we have Mario Williams, who he's getting up there in age. We have to make sure that if he goes down, we have someone we feel comfortable backing him up.
And, I know Gase's style seems to be that he wants to rotate that defense in and out. He wants to keep them fresh. So his game plan is to have more defensive linemen on the roster so he can rotate them through the game. Because the days I think of using a single defensive lineman for every play on defense, we're seeing less and less of that with injury and with players just becoming exhausted. I mean, players nowadays are, the game is at a faster level than it used to be. So I think it's harder for players to have that such of an impact all game long. So we're seeing coaches, Gase and others, go to this rotation thing. We're seeing rotation in running back a lot more, and we're seeing a rotation on defensive line. Also, some other roster cuts that I found interesting. We were pretty deep on wide receiver, and we cut both A.J. Cruz and Matt Hazel. Cruz wasn't that big of a shock to me because, he's just a numbers game. But Matt Hazel, I thought, really had a shot on this team, and I was surprised to see him get cut.
I mean, did Matt Hazel play? Did he even play last season?
He was a reserve. I mean, he played on and off last season.
Okay.
Not much, but still, he was this up-and-coming receiver that we've been working with for a few years now, and he just got that feeling that his time was coming and maybe this was the year. But I guess they felt that there were other, receivers on the team, and we were deep at that position, so, he was expendable. So he was one that I was sorry to see go, and then he ended up getting picked up by the Bills, so we're still going to end up seeing him this year, and hopefully he doesn't play too well against us.
Yeah, I was very happy, though, to see that they kept Jakeem Grant, which it wasn't like, there's a big chance that they were going to get rid of him, but I was very happy to see that they solidified him on the team. And it looks like he will be the starter for kickoff returns, and then he'll be back up to Jarvis Landry on punt returns.
And that was the reason they drafted him. They drafted him as a kickoff specialist, not for not to be a receiver. But I think that's what happened even with Hazel. They saw enough out of Jakeem Grant as a receiver as well that they could use him in both places. So instead of him just being a kickoff specialist, I think with his flexibility, it allowed them to keep another running back instead of another receiver. Then shortly after the wire cuts, the Dolphins picked up Justin Hunter after he was waived by the Titans. He was a 2013 second-round pick, and he's reuniting on the Dolphins with wide receiver coach Sean Jefferson. So, and when Gase was talking with Coach Jefferson about it, he couldn't say enough great things about Justin Hunter, and said, and was really trying to convince Gase, hey, we need to get him on this team. So it's going to be interesting. He was initially he was drafted as a speedster, so he has a lot of speed to stretch the field, and I'm interested to see how the Dolphins use him.
Yeah, definitely, and he will be the backup to wide receiver Kenny Stills on the regular season depth chart.
All right, now let's move on to our Fins Up and Fins Down for the week.
Fins Up, Fins Down.
All right, Maya, who do you got for your Fins Up?
I have quarterback Brandon Doughty. This is very obvious. He beat out Zach Dicer during the Tennessee Titans game. Like you said, he looked very comfortable, and he didn't shy away from the offense and playing in the game, whereas Zach Dicer almost looked panicky at certain times, whereas Brandon Doughty looked more secure. And, that's not something that you see from such a young quarterback, but I'm very happy with his performance, and I'm glad that the Dolphins are keeping him as our third quarterback.
My Fins Up for the week goes to Xavier Howard. It was great to see him back on the field, and he showed enough that he was named starter for Week 1 against Seattle. So I'm excited to see someone new because our current batch of cornerbacks have not been working. So and Xavier Howard was a big question mark. I mean, all of camp, but he came in, played this preseason game, played it strong, and his stock went right up. All right, now let's go to Fins Down. Maya, who's your Fins Down for the week?
My fins down would be our second string running back, Jay Ajayi. His poor gameplay actually pushed him into second string and made Arian Foster first string. I think that his play had a lot to do with that decision. So, he's definitely my fins down. He looked very off. He was stumbling around a lot, and of course that fumble and that lost turnover, it hurt. It hurt to watch, and I feel bad because I do like Jay Ajayi, but I just think that he had a poor performance, so that is why he is my fins down for the week.
My fins down goes to wide receiver Devontae Parker. Once again, he is on the injured list. He somehow has an injury of both hamstrings, and he has not been practicing all week leading into the Seattle game, and he's questionable going into this game. So at some point, I need to see more out of Devontae Parker. He has this amazing potential, and everyone's talking about him as if he's the next Dez Bryant. But to be the next Dez Bryant, you need to be on the field, and you need to be playing, and you need to be making the plays that a Dez Bryant makes. And he's just not doing that. Coach Gase is getting a little frustrated with him as well, and even said in a statement that at some point, Devontae Parker needs to work through some of these injuries and certain types of pain. And he says, he's hoping that at some point that a player gets frustrated enough being on the sideline that they'll push through certain things that they have the ability to play through and be on the field. So I need to see more out of Devontae Parker because the frustration level is getting a little high because he's taking an active roster spot, and which means that's a player that we have on our roster that can't play. And for as much potential, there's that word again, as we hear about him, if he's not on the field, he's not contributing. All right, now let's move on to latest news.
Latest news.
So Donna Ponte, who had an executive role at the Dolphins, at the Miami Dolphins, she is now transitioning out of that executive role into what they're calling a top role at RSE Ventures. And RSE Ventures is co-founded by Stephen Ross and Matt Higgins. I'm glad that this is something that her and Stephen Ross have been talking about. She said that they've been talking about this for months, and I'm glad to see that this is a role that she wants to go into, that she's had her time with the Dolphins as an executive role, but now she's going to move on into something else.
Yeah, she has a really interesting combination of her professional background. She has a legal background. She handled a lot of contract negotiation and all of that with the Dolphins. And so this is a really great opportunity for her. And, while I'm sad to see her go from the Dolphins organization, absolutely wish her the best of luck in this new job.
During a media interview, Landry was asked about Richard Sherman, the cornerback for the Seattle Seahawks, and Landry said that he respects Sherman, but the Dolphins won't shy away from making plays even if Sherman is in coverage and around there. So I thought that was very interesting because, again, it's like that wide receiver cornerback matchup that fans and media love to watch. That is
going to be fun. I think that's going to be a great matchup. Richard Sherman is just awesome to watch. And, while I'm not thrilled to be watching him against the Dolphins, it's going to be a good matchup. And I think Landry's will match up well with him and can do some damage against Richard Sherman. So, I don't know about that one, but we're gonna see. It's going to be fun to watch. Coach Gase decided to travel to Seattle. He's taking the team to Seattle on Thursday. He wants to get the team out there early because his philosophy, especially when going from East Coast to West Coast, is he wants them to get in a normal sleep pattern once they're out there. So that way they're rested and they're ready to go for game time, for game day. And this is, every coach has a different philosophy. Some coaches don't like to travel until last minute, and then they just, they stay on their current sleep cycle. But Gase is saying, no, we're going to get out there early. We're going to practice out there, and we're going to adjust to the time before the game.
That's an interesting concept to think about because I never actually thought about like the decision of when teams have to fly out to other states to play other teams, because it's just not something you think about. So it's interesting that he's bringing them a little bit early and getting them assimilated to the West Coast.
Yeah, they'll be able to practice for 2 days. They'll be able to practice on Friday and then on Saturday over there in the West Coast. Gase had mentioned that Cameron Wake is going to be used as a pass specialist this season. So, or at least starting out, he's not the starting defensive end. And while that's really not a big deal is what they're saying, he's saying that, with Wake, with his age, we don't want him to get injured. We don't need him playing every down. And this is where it comes in that we have such depth on the defensive line. We can bring Wake in on obvious pass downs and let him do what he does best.
Right, yes, because we have on Andre Branch, and then we have Terrence Fede as backups to Wake. So I think that's a good idea, because again, Wake is someone who is very special and important and vital to the Dolphins, but he's not someone that he needs to be out there every single down, risking him for injury.
Going into this game, Mike Pouncey is still questionable. As of this podcast, he has not yet practiced. I mean, he's doing some small individual drills, but he's not out there with the team. So it looks like he is not going to play this week versus Seattle, which means that Anthony Steen will get the start. Now, Steen has played really well so far in the preseason, but now we're going to see what happens in a regular game. Can he hold his own on that offensive line?
I'm pretty sure he'll be able to.
I hope so, because that's a huge. In the preseason, the one thing that was nice to see was that when he was in there, Tanny had some time to throw. And it wasn't just Steen, but it was Steen and then that makeshift offensive line that they now have. With Tunsil in there and so forth, and so hopefully that continues, because we're seeing that if Tannehill has time to throw, he does pretty good. Also, Jelani Jenkins is questionable for Sunday as well. However, Jelani Jenkins has started to practice and do some drills with the team. It's light practice, but it's still hope that he can play on Sunday.
If he is out for Sunday, Neville Hewitt will take his place as linebacker.
And I like Hewitt. I think Hewitt has a lot of upside. I'd rather have the experience of Jenkins in there, but I think Hewitt can do a decent job.
Just the thought, our first string, our starting linebackers have such awesome names, like Jelani Jenkins, Koa Misi. You know what I mean? I just put it out there.
That's awesome. We mentioned earlier, but Arian Foster gets the start this week, and he's shown some amazing flashes in the preseason, and I'm real excited to see what he can do in full speed game time. And then also Xavier Howard. Also
Justin Hunter. I'll be interested to see if he does play on Sunday, which I'm hoping he will, because I want to see all this talk about this wide receiver that came from the Tennessee Titans. So I'm hoping that he plays on Sunday, so we get to see what kind of wide receiver he really is.
I think that will depend on whether Devontae Parker's playing or not. If Parker's out, then yeah, I would think.
Actually, no, because they have Leonte Carew behind Parker. They actually have Hunter behind Stills.
Yeah, but it's.
Is it interchangeable?
It's interchangeable.
Okay.
Those depth charts are, again, they're a formality more than anything else. They really don't mean anything. All right, so now let's look at our keys to the game versus Seattle.
Keys to the game.
All right, Maya, what's your first key to the game?
My first key would be to have a strong running game. Again, Arian Foster showed those amazing flashes during the preseason, but now I want to see that be consistent in the regular season. I want him to have a great game and solidify his value. That being said, I also want Jay Ajayi to go out there and have a strong game. So overall, I'm looking for a step up from 53 yards to maybe, somewhere in the 100 ball game.
And that's so important. We have to have a ground game. This has been a problem for the Dolphins for years now. And in order to take some pressure off of Tannehill, we have to be able to run the ball. if it's easy for the defense to stop the running game, then they can start keying on Tannehill, and it makes life so much difficult for him. And we know that when he's under a tremendous amount of pressure, he does not play well. We need to be able to take the pressure off him, and our running game is absolutely a key to that. My first key to the game is going to be the play of the defensive line. We have to put pressure on Russell Wilson. We have to have the ability to make him uncomfortable back there. Russell Wilson is too good of a quarterback to just allow to have time to throw. If he has time to throw, if he has the ability to scramble outside, any of those things, he is absolutely going to shred the Dolphin defense. So the key is going to be the defensive line really getting pressure. Now, we have the wide 9 defense, and the whole point of that is to keep containment on the quarterback, to keep containment on, and the ball going towards the center, and then our linebackers being able to come up and stop that. So I really want to see this defensive scheme in action and see if it can work against a quarterback like Russell Wilson.
Yeah, the defensive line definitely has a lot of challenge, I would say, with this game, because Russell Wilson is known for being an amazing quarterback, even under immense pressure. So it'll be very interesting to see how the defensive line and what the defensive schemes are against someone like Russell Wilson. Because, again, he is, not just when he has time to throw. When he doesn't have time to throw, he makes amazing plays. So it'll be very interesting to see how defense works with that. My second key to the game would be Ryan Tannehill. Now, this is not because I don't see anything happening, but I want him to have a good, solid, productive game. The Seattle defense they're very good. Seattle is mostly known for, their defense. So I want Ryan Tannehill to have a great completion percentage with his wide receivers. They need to be in sync and work together so that they can pick apart that defense. I don't want to see Richard Sherman, as great as a player as he is, breaking up passes and getting in the way of that completion percentage. So I'm really hoping that Ryan Tannehill and his wide receivers can work together to have a great offensive game.
This is the year to figure out, is he our quarterback? I mean, there was a lot of scrutiny over the past few years. There's been a lot of blame that's going on with Philbin and so forth. And now we really get to see, can Gase do something different? Can he scheme differently? And, we're going to see. My second key to the game is the play of Xavier Howard. This is a big deal. We need that other cornerback. We need our cornerbacks to play strong. And this is, right off the bat, right in the very first game of the season, we are, against an opponent that is going to challenge us and challenge us often. Russell Wilson is a quality quarterback. He has the ability to throw accurately and challenge down the field, and our cornerbacks need to be on top of their game. So, yes, Byron Maxwell, I think that's a given, but really they're going to be going after Xavier Howard. He's the rookie. He's the one that they can test, they can challenge, and he's going to have his hands full most of the day. Yeah, definitely. If the Seattle Seahawks notice any weaknesses in our defensive backs, they will do everything in their power to exploit that. So we can't show there can't be any flaws. Like, everything needs to be perfect with our defensive backs. So I know the predictions out there are that Miami's going to get blown out in this game. But everywhere from the Vegas odd makers, to the media all around the country. However, and again, this comes from, I guess, being a fan, but I have a lot of hope. I want to, I want to have that hope that they can build on last year. I know we're probably looking at 8-8, 9-7 season. I would be thrilled with a 9-7 season, but I would like to see what Gase can do. I want to see, can Gase motivate the team to come out and make a statement in the first game, especially going over and at Seattle. Now, historically, Miami has done very well going to the West Coast. So maybe that will be a good sign for us for Sunday.
Yeah, and hey, even if we take the L, I just want to make sure that we worked really hard, like that it wasn't an easy win for Seattle.
Yeah, that we compete. And that's the thing. I agree. Even if we don't come away with a victory this week, I want to see us compete. I want to see signs that are pointing to a bright future for the Dolphins. I know it's going to take a couple years to get there, and this is only the start of that, but I need to see signs that we are heading in the right direction. All right, so now let's take a look around the NFL.
Around the NFL.
So, the Minnesota Vikings quarterback Teddy Bridgewater got injured with a dislocated knee and a torn ACL. It was a pretty vicious injury, and because of this, the Vikings seek to trade with the Philadelphia Eagles to get Sam Bradford. The Vikings gave up their 2017 first-round draft pick and their fourth-round draft pick in the 2018 draft. I would say this is a pretty good trade for Philly, considering that they had Carson Wentz, the number 2 overall draft pick. Now that's going to be starter. They don't really need Sam Bradford. And, I think it was a good overall trade for both teams because the Vikings now have a quarterback. I wouldn't say he's a top caliber quarterback, but, he's had some success in the league. And then, so they have someone filling that role. And then Philly got their draft picks. And they also have Carson Wentz that they feel comfortable and secure with.
The Eagles made out on this deal. Sam Bradford is not worth a first-round pick, not by a long shot. And the Eagles, look, the Eagles season wasn't going anywhere this year. The Eagles knew that. The NFL knows that. And all of a sudden, they wanted to look to the future, right? They just drafted this kid, and they wanted to look, and they were going to give him a year to develop. But they looked at it and said, wow, we can pick up another first-round draft pick for next year by unloading Sam Bradford now. Let's do it. We're not playoff bound this year. We already know that. It's a rebuilding year. So let's go full steam into rebuilding and pick up a first round. And it came out of necessity. The Vikings losing Teddy Bridgewater, they had high expectations this year. They are looking playoffs. They are thinking Super Bowl. They are, trying to put all of those pieces together. And all of a sudden, losing Bridgewater, your team is in disarray. And they had to do something for their fans. They can't go in with these expectations of, hey, we have a chance to compete for the Super Bowl, and then all of a sudden say, hey, we're taking a year off. They had to do something, and that something meant overpaying for a quarterback. And is Sam Bradford a good quarterback? He's decent. He's good. Could the Dolphins trade Tannehill for a first-round pick? It'd be the same thing. It'd be like, well, who's going to pay that? Tannehill's hasn't proven that he's worth that yet. So I think that's what they got, is they got somebody that can manage the game. They got a decent quarterback, and they got someone hopefully that can at least manage it well enough for Adrian Peterson to have a good year.
Which is something very interesting because Adrian Peterson he's old in NFL years. So I would not have Adrian Peterson running every down. So it's not like they can depend their entire team riding on Adrian Peterson. Now, I know he's a great running back. He's Hall of Fame up there, definitely, but he is getting up there in age. You can't put the whole team on his back anymore.
Yeah, and I think they're going to try to, at least for one more year. But, we'll see how much he can take. We're going to see if, he's at his age towards the end of the season. He may not have the energy. He may not be able to do the same things that he used to do. So it is going to be interesting to see what Sam Bradford can do. Now, we've seen some great things out of Sam Bradford. I just, just don't know. But the Eagles made out pretty well. And again, I think the Vikings salvaged their season by doing this trade. So it was, it was a good, as you said, it was a good trade on both sides.
In other quarterback news, Jared Goff is now inactive for the Los Angeles Rams season opener, which is interesting because Jared Goff was a number 1 draft pick this year, and the Rams are choosing not to start him, which kind of, it says a lot. It says that they're comfortable with Case Keenum to be their starter quarterback, and it also says that even though Jared Goff is this amazing top prospect from the draft, he still needs to earn his role to become their starting quarterback. So they put him inactive, and they have Case Keenum as their starter quarterback, and then Sean Mannion as their second string.
Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, usually when you pick someone, especially high first round, when you select someone like that, the goal is put him in there and start him. Now, again, every coach has their different philosophy, and there are some coaches that believe that we're going to hold a quarterback back for a year. We're going to let them develop and let them, learn the speed of the game, and then we'll use them in the second year. But typically, when you see a high pick like that, the goal is let's get him into game time action right away. So that's a very interesting decision by the Rams. Dallas is going into the season with their backup Dak Prescott. And, while Prescott looked extremely impressive in the preseason, I'm very curious on how that translates to the regular season. They start off the season by playing the Giants, their longtime rivals, and this is going to be a huge test. And, the other interesting thing with that is Jerry Jones decided to keep Tony Romo on the active 53-man roster. That's Jerry Jones. Tony Romo is like his prodigal son. I mean, this is the whole. He created him. This undrafted quarterback all of a sudden rose to this great fame. Jerry Jones looks at Tony Romo like his trophy boy. So I think in a lot of ways he's overprotecting him. Should he go on the injured reserve? I think absolutely. But is Jerry Jones trying to do everything he can to protect his son? Absolutely. And I think that's what's happening here. So Tony Romo is going to be active. I think a lot of that is going to be how well does Dak Prescott play. If Prescott comes out the first 3-4 games and plays tremendous and Dallas is winning, I think we still may see Romo go on the injured list yet. If he doesn't, then we'll see a rush back to Romo as soon as possible.
Right, because placing him on injury reserve would have ruled him out until the midseason. And I don't think Jerry Jones wants to take that chance. But again, Romo's out with a fractured vertebrae in his back. This is not like, oh, I hurt my knee or something. This is his back we're talking about. This is his spine. So I'm not sure. You know what? Tony Romo has proven himself, I think, in the last couple of years that he is a top quarterback, but his body is just giving out. And I feel almost bad for his family and for his body that he's constantly putting himself through this torture.
The Patriots are also going to play the first 4 games without Tom Brady. This is interesting to watch as well, because, again, the start of the season, if they falter in the beginning of the season, can Tom Brady catch them up enough when he gets back? A lot's going to be, how well does Garoppolo play? If he plays decent. Even if they come out of it with a split, I think that's what they're hoping. If they come out of it with a split and they're 2-2 going into Brady, I think the Patriots are still the team to beat.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but the concern for the Patriots right now is, are they going to come out of this 0-4?
Yeah, because then it doesn't leave a lot of wiggle room for the Patriots to have any more losses.
No, it's a big deal. I mean, you have an all-pro quarterback. I mean, you have arguably the best quarterback in the league that's out for the first 4 games. So we're going to see. Now, with Coach Belichick, you have to game plan against him because he's probably one of the smartest coaches that are out there. And I've seen him over the years win with whoever he has in the game. And it's amazing over time as people have gone down and he's been able to adjust and they just keep on steamrolling forward. So that's going to be a game to watch this week.
Just an interesting news tidbit. Colin Kaepernick's 49ers jersey is now the number 1 selling jersey at the NFL shop. That's definitely interesting. I don't know if that's what the NFL planned was going to happen, but yeah, his jerseys are selling like hot fire. That's not a saying.
Yeah. Well
Excuse me.
Well, he's trending, and that seems to be what's whatever's trending is what's popular, good or bad. So he's trending right now. There's people on both sides of that argument, and so that's why he's so popular.
Hey, if anything, he's making money out of it. So are the 49ers.
Maybe that's why they're still keeping him on the team. All right, so now we're going to move on to a new segment that we have called Picks of the Week.
Picks of the Week.
In this segment, we're simply going to run down all of the games that are playing, and we're going to give you our picks for the week.
Panthers at Broncos.
I'm going to take Carolina on this one. I think Cam Newton has a lot to prove, so I'm hoping that they take the win.
I agree. I'm going Carolina as well. I think Cam Newton is going to come back on fire, and this is going to be an opening statement game for him.
Buccaneers at Falcons.
I'm taking the Atlanta Falcons on this one.
I'm going to go with Tampa Bay. I think, again, Tampa Bay is a young team coming out, wants to prove something. They're going to win this game.
Vikings at Titans.
I'm taking Tennessee Titans. I think they had a great preseason, and I think, again, with the situation with the Vikings, I don't really know what's going to happen, so I'm going to take the Tennessee Titans.
I'm going to go with the Minnesota Vikings this week. I think even though there's an uncertainty at quarterback, they're going to rely heavily on Adrian Peterson, who's going to have a big game. And again, this is going to be a statement game for their fans that we're going to still be winners this year.
Browns at Eagles.
Philly all the way on this one.
I'm going to go with the Browns. I think Philadelphia is going to have a horrible year. I think they almost are surrendering with the trade of Sam Bradford, and they're looking for the future. And so I believe it or not, I see Cleveland winning this game.
Bengals at Jets.
Ooh, this one is interesting. I think I'm going to take the Cincinnati Bengals. They had a lot of success last season, and I think that that's going to carry through into this season.
We're going in opposite directions again because I'm going with the Jets for this game. Ryan Fitzpatrick, he's back as the starter for the Jets. He's extremely powerful when he's in control of that offense. And again, the Jets are at home this week, so they will win that one.
Raiders at Saints.
I'm going to take the Saints on this one.
Yep, and I'm going to go with the Saints at well. Saints at home, they will win this game.
Chargers at Chiefs.
Kansas City's taking this one. Again, just like the Cincinnati Bengals, they figured out what worked for them last season, and I think that that's going to carry on through to this season.
Kansas City's an amazing team, and they are going to be a powerhouse once again this year. They will easily win this game.
Bills at Ravens.
This one's interesting, and I don't know which way it's going to go. Hopefully, I win. I hope that the Ravens win, but I don't know. I think Buffalo might take it, so I'm going to go with Buffalo.
I'm going to go with Buffalo as well. There's a lot of question marks around this team, and we still have to see where it kind of settles. But on paper so far, it looks like Buffalo could be a contender this year.
Bears at Texans.
I'm taking the Houston Texans on this one.
I'm going to go Houston too. I think Houston looks strong, and Chicago's a little bit in disarray. So it should be Houston by a lot.
Packers at Jaguars.
No doubt in my mind, Green Bay's taking this game.
I'm going for the upset at Jacksonville. And Jacksonville's going to be a strong team this year. They have a very good defense. Green Bay's traveling down to Florida to play them. And, so they're going to be out of their element. I'm going for the upset with Jacksonville.
Giants at Cowboys.
I'm going to take Dallas on this one. I think that Dak Prescott's going to have a great game against the Giants. And, the Giants typically don't have the greatest of defenses, so I think that Dak Prescott will be able to pick them apart and have a very high-scoring game.
I'm going with Dallas as well. My feeling is that the play of Dak Prescott is going to flow over from the preseason into the regular season. I don't think he's going to miss a beat, and I think Dallas is going to come out strong.
Lions at Colts.
I'm going to go with Detroit here.
I'm going to go with Detroit as well. This is another upset pick, but Detroit typically plays better in the beginning of the season. Indy, I still think has way too many question marks, and so Detroit for the upset at Indy.
Patriots at Cardinals.
I'm going to take the Arizona Cardinals. I think that they are a very strong team with Carson Palmer leading them. So I definitely think, especially with that Jimmy Garoppolo's in and Tom Brady's out, I think that this will be an easy win for the Cardinals.
I'm going to go for the Cardinals as well. I think that Arizona at home just is going to be too strong without Tom Brady in there. Even though I do think New England's going to play this as a much closer game than they're predicting. So I think it's going to be a battle all the way down to the end, but the Cardinals will take it.
Steelers at Redskins.
I'm going to take the Washington Redskins. I think that, they did win their division last season, not by a long shot because that division was very messy, but I think that that they will take it because, again, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they don't usually win in the beginning. They're more of in a December team, so I think that the Washington Redskins will take this.
I'm going to go for the Pittsburgh Steelers in this one. I think Roethlisberger's just too strong, and he's going to have a good game and propel them to victory. So Pittsburgh Steelers.
Rams at 49ers.
I'm going to take the Rams on this one. Even though they're in a whole new city, a whole new state, I think that they have some very strong players, and that will push through the 49ers mess.
It's interesting. We have two teams with an identity crisis here, but I'm going to go with the LA Rams as well. I think, I think the point that they're playing under a new city, they have this new energy around them. It's going to propel them into victory.
Final thoughts.
All right, Dolphin fans, that's our podcast for the week. During the regular season, we're going to be recording our podcast every Wednesday afternoon, where we'll recap the games of the previous week and give you our thoughts looking forward into the upcoming weeks. As always, you can follow us on Twitter. We are at Dolphin Fincast, FINCAST, or you can go to our website at dolphinpodcast.com. Please reach out to us. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know if you have any questions, and we will answer them here on a future podcast. Thanks for listening, and here's to an amazing game in Week 1 versus Seattle.
And hopefully to an amazing season. Thank you, Dolphins.
All right. Thank you, Dolphins. Go Fins.